Cody here, and welcome to today's episode of Breakfast with Cody Gall. And yes, sir, today I'm going to talk about white supremacy. I did an episode a little while ago talking about white nationalism and how I think it's basically a fantasy. It's never going to happen on planet Earth. And then I also talked about my science fiction story that I'm writing about the bigger plan, where there'll be white globalism. If we can colonize 1,000 planets all at once, then a couple of them can be for white nationalists, a couple of them can be for black nationalists. Either way, 1,000 years from now, they'll all be ethnoplanets because whatever you put on those planets are going to mix all up into one race. So they'll be ethnoplanets one way or another. And I think that that's going to make a good science fiction story because it's just science fiction. That's all that is. But on this planet, we're going to have a rage horizon. It's unavoidable. It's going to happen. But it's either going to happen artificially as part of a big plot by the central banking system to kill everybody and enslave humanity, or it's just going to happen organically and naturally over the next 1,000 years. Either way, it's going to happen. But anyway, so that's white nationalism. White supremacy is just racism, but from the point of view of white people. In my opinion, what racism is not to acknowledge the existence of race. And racism is not is not picking on other. I mean, you could even go to the extreme of making jokes about other people, and it's not in good taste, but it's not, I wouldn't call it racism. Racism to me is you want to genocide another race or you want to put them down as second-class citizens. So it's the liberals that are racists because the liberals run all the cities. Most every city government in America is liberal and like uber ultra liberal. And that's where all the giant ghettos are. That's where black people are suffering as second-class citizens. And liberals are also genocidal maniacs. 100 years ago, they wanted to genocide the black race with Planned Parenthood. Colored people are like weeds to be exterminated. That's a quote from Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood. And now they want to genocide the white race. They're always wanting to genocide somebody. They're the racists. But there is a little clique of just insane, crazy rednecks. And I grew up in the country. They're out there. They're out there. And they're just bitter and hateful rednecks that fantasize about having some white army march on the brown-skinned people or something, even though white people only make up like 6% of the global population, and at least a third of them are like totally insane liberals, and then a huge chunk of them, another third, are just kind of like in the middle between being liberal and conservative, and they're just independent people living their lives. And then there's another third that kind of identify as being conservative, whatever that really means. So like 2/3 of white people are just playing this game between being a conservative and a liberal. Another third are just kind of doing their thing. And then there's this teeny tiny little group that's like, yo, white power. And so you're talking about significantly less than 1% of the population of the planet Earth is going to take out the other 90 something percent. What? It's just laughably stupid. But they're out there. They're out there. And it's like, who cares, you know? And there's such a small, insignificant thing. Although, I will admit, that is who is the Aryan Brotherhood. And the Aryan Brotherhood is hardcore. I mean, that's a pretty serious gang. I mean, they're just as twisted and evil as MS-13. There's just not as many of them. And the Aryan Brotherhood, they're all about some crystal meth, drug trafficking, crystal meth, and human trafficking. A big chunk of the amateur porn industry is actually run by the Aryan Brotherhood, which to me that is just insane to be a white supremacist but yet pimp out your own women. Come on, guys, like you're not a white supremacist. If you're a white supremacist and you're pimping out white girls, underage white girls, there's a cold pit in hell waiting for you. That's not putting the white race first as your main priority. That's putting crystal meth and rape first as your main priority in life. And then the fact that you got some Confederate flag somewhere don't change nothing. And then that thing about the Confederacy is the Confederates, that there is I'm not even going to get into the history of the Civil War, but there is a whole history to the Civil War. And it wasn't white supremacy. But yet somehow or another, the Confederacy has become a symbol of white supremacy when it wasn't ever meant to be that. And the Confederate flag and all these Confederate statues and monuments have a real place in history. And it's not pro-white supremacy. Like, for example, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Nashville Jr., he went and confronted some Antifas in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, who were using the name of this guy, James Cates. I looked him up. So James Cates was a Christian conservative in the civil rights movement who was a lot like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Had some associations with some wickedly evil people like LBJ. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was kind of used as a puppet by people like LBJ. And it's very sad because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself, I compare him to Bob Marley, that he had some secrets. He had some skeletons in his closet. People think of him as being like this perfect guy, but he wasn't. But for the most part, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a pretty good guy. And another guy that had some skeletons in his closet was Bruce Lee. Those back in the day, it's just how it was, And same thing with JFK. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was very openly Christian conservative, and he was nonviolent and completely, totally nonviolent to the point where it wasn't just he wasn't beating people up, but he also wasn't doing any passive aggressive type of crap like blocking traffic or anything like that could actually get people hurt really bad. Like, what if someone's on the way to the hospital and you're blocking traffic? What if rioting and stuff like that and burning stuff and toppling statues? I mean, this kind of stuff can get people hurt really bad. What if the statue falls on somebody? I mean, this is Silent Sam in Chapel Hill being taken down by a bunch of Antifa crazy people. What if they had landed on somebody? I mean, that could have killed somebody, So, Silent Sam is a statue that was put up a long time ago as a memorial to soldiers who died in a conflict, who were just following orders. And those soldiers were the sons brothers of people who missed them, and they died in a war. And so when the war was over, they did a monument to their brothers and their sons who died. And specifically, Silent Sam is a monument to people who were students at UNC. And now, flash forward 150 years, now it's a symbol of white supremacy, when it was never meant to be that. It was meant to be a monument to specific people who died, that were loved and cherished by family members. It's like, is Arlington Cemetery a white supremacist monument? I mean, it's insane. It's just insane. So today, November 5th, I believe Nashville Jr. might actually be on his way to Chapel Hill again. So check his channel later today, because there may or may not be quality footage of another confrontation with Antifas. Thank you for watching.